religion can be the best place in the world to hide from God.
I've heard you say that before, and I like that.
Yeah, because I mean, think about it. If you can do what Jesus is essentially pushing back on or rebuking here, do not do, or what did this version, practice,
right.
Do not practice your charitable deeds before men. Okay, so the charitable deed that is done for a fellow human being doesn't actually have the fellow human being in view.
Correct.
Right? I'm doing
what it actually
something,
has in view is oneself.
Yeah, myself. I'm doing something charitable, something good for you, but it's not about you. It's about me. It's not for you. It's for me. And in what sense is it for me? It's for me to look good in the community.
It's not for your well-being. It's for my reputation.
Yeah, and it's duplicitous. It's hypocrisy. It's not real. It's the person is not being loved. This is a form of self-love. Or you might even, I mean, this isn't probably great language, but it came to my mind, so I'll use it. This is a kind of spiritual masturbation.
Right.
You know? So
you're merely a means by which I achieve something for myself.
Now, I'm using you as a tool to project an image that's not real because I want people to think I'm something that I'm not. And Jesus is sweeping that aside. He's saying, let's keep it real. Let's get real. All pretentious performative religion needs to give way to the authentic article of relationship with God that spills over into charitable deeds that actually have the person in mind for whom the charitable deed is done.
I love everything there. Also, when he uses the phrase here, NIV says, be careful. This is the first two words of the chapter. New King James says, take heed. The language here is very specific. Give attention to. Do your best. Be mindful of. In other words, in the same way that we talked in our last session about how it's so easy for human beings to just lapse into revenge, not just an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, but the escalation, you know, and then all of a sudden, it's very easy for us to want to be perceived. It's natural for us to want to be perceived by others, by our peers, by our friends, as good people.
I like that language, lapse. It's easy to lapse into revenge, you said, but also it's easy to lapse into religious performance.
Into religious performance, because we want to be viewed by the people that we value as somebody also of value. And so Jesus says here, when you do your deeds for the poor, and I like the fact that he just assumes that those that are listening to him will naturally, natively want to do this. Right? He doesn't say, you should do good. When you do these things, give attention to the fact that you don't do it like this. Right? There's a right way to do right things, and there's a wrong way to do right things. Jesus assumes they're going to do right things. Right? When you give alms, in our section today, Ty, Jesus will be addressing himself to the giving of alms, charitable deeds, praying and fasting, all of which are good things, and all of which Jesus assumes his listeners, his disciples, his hearers will want to do. So what he's going to do, he's a teacher, he's a tutor. He's going to teach us how to do them, and by extension, how not to do them. Right? And so he says, when you do this, be careful not to do it in such a way that you are maximizing exposure. Years ago, I was in Yosemite Valley. You've been to Yosemite. It's one of the most beautiful places on earth. And I was in the village there. Yosemite Village has a little, like a grocery store. And I went in there and was buying a bunch of stuff because I was there on a climbing trip. And it's so funny, the things that stick with you in your mind. I mean, this was 15, 20 years ago. And when I was checking out, I saw there was a little, like, tip jar. You know, they have those little tip jars, you know, leave $1, leave a quarter, leave whatever. And this just registered in my mind, and I've never forgotten it. On that little tip jar, it said, kindness is kindest when it's anonymous.
That's Sermon on the Mount material right there.
That's what he's saying. So if I'm kind to you and I get some reward, some benefit out of it, then it actually lessens the beauty of the thing. But if it's totally anonymous, that's maximal
That actually
kindness.
reminds me of something I saw in Toronto, where a guy was sitting with a sign with a jar to receive money.
What did it say?
His sign said that he was selling good karma for $1. Essentially the opposite
Right.
of what the tip jar said there. Go ahead and engage in a performative act of charity. I'm incidental, but if you want to get something out of this deal, give me $1 and maybe something will come back to you.
Mercy. So I'm just going to read through this a little bit because there's a few more little things I want to tease out here. Verse 2, so when you give to the needy, do not announce it with trumpets. It would be hard to imagine a more exaggerative way. Jesus is using exaggeration in the Sermon on the Mount for good effect. He said, chop off your right hand and gouge out your right eye.
Yeah.
And here he says, don't sound the trumpets before you. And I imagine that in the ears of those that are hearing this, there was a chuckle.
Yeah.
Because they know exactly what he's doing. He's already said, unless your righteousness exceeds the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, and we've noted that he's not saying be more strict, be more punctiliar and more fastidious than they are. No, he's saying we're going to do this a whole nother way.
Yeah.
We're not looking for technicalities.
Yeah.
We're not looking for loopholes. We're not looking for the opportunity for performance or pretense. And he uses this semi-humorous illustration of, okay, hear ye.
I'm about to make a donation.
I'm going to do a good deed here. I mean, it's funny.
Right. Everybody turn and look. And
everybody would have known, just in Jesus saying this, people would have known.
Oh,
he's highlighting their hypocrisy.
We see this all the time.
We know what he's talking about. And it would be hard for Jesus to say this if he himself was practicing the same things.
Right.
So he wasn't. They would have seen in Jesus a modesty, a humility, and a blending in. He didn't have all the ornaments and the accoutrements and the phylacteries. He's just a dude.
And definitely no trumpets.
No trumpets.
Yeah.
Just an ordinary person going about doing good indiscriminately, like the sun and the rain, which we've talked about.
He actually performed miracles and said, don't tell anyone.
That's a great point. Yeah, literally, don't tell. This is just between us, okay?
Yeah.
This is just between us bros. Don't tell anybody about this.
Yeah.
So I really like that. Don't sound a trumpet before you. He takes this secrecy thing so far that he uses another sort of semi-humorous illustration. Don't even let your one hand know what the other hand is doing.
Yeah.
Right. This is.
In other words, don't even commend yourself for your good deeds.
Yes. Yeah. And then he says, your Father who sees in secret, and there's the sort of undergirding reality here that while human beings might not see an anonymous act of kindness, God sees all.
Yeah.
God sees, God knows, God understands. And then I like this idea here. Those that are performing this masturbatory act, as you talked about, I'm going to do a good deed to you that's really not about you, it's about me.
Right.
He says when people do that, they've received the full reward for their thing because their thing is, God doesn't have to come in and intervene and add any additional reward or benefit because it wasn't even about God.
Yeah.
It wasn't about the needy, it wasn't about God, it was about them.
It was all about themselves.
And when people say, oh, look at that pious man, look at that, that's their reward.
And here's the thing, David. We can't even speak self-righteously about what Jesus is describing here because, as you said a moment ago, we're all inclined to performative religion.
Correct.
We're all inclined to do good things and hope somebody notices us doing it, right?
No, you're not wrong.
So we're all implicated in this, and we're being called to a higher standard of secret goodness in the sense that doing right because it is right and right doing is pleasing to God, and just letting it be what it is. And the end goal is actually the benefit to the recipient on the end of the charitable deed.
The thing that just came to my mind about that, Ty, is at the very end of the Gospel of Matthew when Jesus gives this incredible parable where he talks about the separation of the wheat and the tares and the sheep and the goats and these on the left and these on the right.
Oh,
and
I know what you're going to say.
He does this great thing where he says, you clothed me, and you visited me in prison, and you fed me.
And they
say,
what?
When did we do that?
They didn't let their right hand know, or their left hand know what their right hand had done, right?
They were rain.
Oh, that's a good connection.
They were rain
That's
and sun.
a good connection here.
Isn't that a good one?
Yeah, that's a good connection here.
They're
like, what? We don't remember.
Right.
Really?
Exactly.
He's like, oh yeah, I saw, and we're rewarding openly now.
It's the direct outflowing of the thing that Jesus has already said. Be like the rain, be like the sun, indiscriminate kindness, not trumpet-blowing performative religion, just do the right thing.
Do the right thing.
Quietly.
Powerful.
Discreetly.
Powerful.
Secretly, and God sees.
Yeah. God help us.